Thank you very much for that beautiful introduction. And as I sat there and even listening to that, I guess the essence of the work that I do is reinvention, right? Or I just realised I need to put my timer on, so I'm just going to do that, or I could get very carried away. Right, we're off. The work that I do is reinvention. It's about helping people reinvent themselves, reinvent their lives, reinvent their businesses, or start their businesses. And so I guess it was perfect, really, in terms of where I've been growing and going. My journey of reinvention personally was obviously, as Colette created, from a corporate law background into a coach and starting my own business, which I'll be honest, I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I'd say I'm an accidental one. I fell into it. I found the thing I was here to do and created Untapped, which runs coaching programs, speaking, workshops, all sorts of things across Aotearoa and globally now as well. So, when COVID hit for me personally, I felt a lot of gratitude, to be transparent, that I had a digital business. So the world of Zoom and Slack and all the things we've been getting used to navigating are my life and my day in, day out. So, however, I did have another business that was a fully in-person training program, which we had the privilege of hosting at Heidi's space in Dunedin at one point. So that business has since pivoted very quickly to an online version for now. But I found myself in, I guess, when all of this happened, my partner and I were meant to be moving overseas and going over training, and I was surrounded by a lot of people that there was a lot of questioning, people watching the news saying there's going to be no money, how are people going to afford coaching, and all of the fears started to instill for me. All the entrepreneurs I look up to and admire were talking about, 2008 recession, we got through it. I was like, I didn't ride the 2008 recession, so I was on like every webinar. I was calling my mentors in the US. I was talking to people all across the globe for about 3 days straight, just trying to figure out what you're meant to do when you run a business in a time like this. I'm very new to business. This is my third year in the game. And like I said, I think I'm an accidental entrepreneur. But I found myself, when everything happened, about a weekend after lockdown was announced, in a cafe crying. And I felt resigned, and I felt like I wasn't sure how I could actually make a difference to the extent of what was occurring. And I called a couple of my really good friends, and that's why I believe so much in mentorship and community. And they said, Briony, there are people who are listening and there are people who are waiting. And I think at that point, I really got that it didn't really matter even if no one was listening. I had to show up, and I had to lead, and I had to be of service in this time. The challenge of that was I was still going through all of my own stuff too, which is the challenge of leadership to some extent, is that we're still trying to figure out our life and where we're living and what's happening in our world. But I showed up in service and got in communication with my community. I reached back out to every past client that I'd worked with and just started being of service, because that's all we can really do in these times. And started running some free masterclasses, one of the concepts of which I'm going to share with you tonight really briefly, just about, obviously, my specific training is around mindset. So as Richard was saying, like, the mindset is everything through a time like this. So that's where I could bring my skills. I started running some masterclasses around the levels of perception when we're going through an event like this. How are we perceiving this event? How is it filtering through? How are we creating our own experience through our thoughts and our beliefs and the news and everything we're consuming? And so that's what I showed up, and that's what I did. I got in communication with my team as well. So I'd just been brave enough to scale for the first time in business, whatever that meant, in a coaching business, and hired like 3 new people. All of which I was now very stressed that I couldn't financially sustain. So that was my first kind of vulnerable leadership, of getting real about the money we had coming in, what we had to sustain ourselves, and what that would look like. Again, I had no idea how to have that conversation, but we were there and we worked it out. And in terms of the last 3 months of business, they have been the biggest 3 months I've ever had. And ever since we started, we've had hundreds of people through the free programs. We've had hundreds of people to the masterclasses. We've had the biggest revenue we've ever created for those who had the means to engage in coaching. Because I think what I saw was, in a time like this, people are receptive and people are open and people are asking bigger questions than they've ever asked. What am I meant to be doing with my life? How am I living? Do I really want to be doing this? Do I want to go back to that job? And so the messages just started flooding in. And the biggest challenge for me over the last 3 months has just been like making sure I'm filling up my tank and have the support systems to actually hold that space for those who are coming through. So it's been an interesting time in terms of reinvention the business. We were fully digital, helped other businesses go digital, and really started to create different pricing packages and all those sorts of things that were a natural need for innovation. And I think in times of crisis, like Richard said, like we have to innovate. We don't have an option. I resonated with Heidi when she said, she the crisis got her going. And I to some extent, once I worked through my own reservations and self-doubt about what I could contribute, I really could start showing up and thinking really creatively. So I'm going to share a quick framework with you guys, because I know obviously we are working with time limits. So basically in this time, what I created was the 3 levels of perception. I'm just going to share a screen here and we'll have a look at it. So this is for everyone to think about perhaps where you're at the moment. I think when the news, etc., we locked into the world is ending, and it created a lot of fear and anxiety and stress. And that's where majority of people coming through the doors were at. Level 2 looks like a bit of in terms of a perception and how we're thinking about this event, because our thoughts create our reality. I can't make any moves. I've just got to be secure, plan, and be calm. And that kind of leads to inaction to some extent. And then Richard was alluding to the entrepreneurial mindset, which was more about let's get creative, let's get big picture thinking, let's get innovative, let's look for the opportunities and the gaps and the places that people need to be served in this time and find the solutions for that. And I'd say that is more the entrepreneurial mindset. So transcending those levels and even bringing in awareness to where we were at, and running masterclasses on this very simple concept we were diving into really deep and really having people look at where am I sitting in this space. And so for you, something to consider, just to close out, is to really think about where are you in that space and what mindset. In a day, to be honest, you can go through all 3, but it's all about awareness, because when we have awareness, we have choice, and when we have choice, we can create different results and we can see something different possible for ourselves and others in the world. So thinking about for yourself, perhaps feel free to take a screenshot, we can send those through, but where are you sitting, and how can we get ourselves into the big picture creative thinking, and be of service with what the world really needs, whether that's COVID or everything that's happening in the US right now. There's just so much need for a continual looking at ourselves first so that we can create what the world needs. Kia ora, that is my 7 minutes up.